Team Fortress 2 has had a lot of unreleased content, most of which is likely to stay unreleased. But fear not, because today I'm going to be building leaked and unreleased TF2 weapons in real life. So let's go. The first weapon we are going to be recreating is none other than the Saboteur 66. The Saboteur 66 is a secondary laser pistol created by Weta Workshop, which I mentioned in my last video where I made the Pomson, but that aside, Weta Workshop is not only responsible for the Saboteur 66, but they also give us Soldier's Victory Pack, Engineer's Brainiac Pack, and Pyro's Moonman Pack, which supplied us with many items that we have come to be familiar with today. The Saboteur 66 is meant to be part of a larger pack, much like the others, except this specific pack was meant to be for Scout and it came with all new cosmetics and a primary shotgun, which I will also be recreating soon. One other fun fact about Weta Workshop is that many of the items that they have made for TF2 they also sell as real life props, including the Saboteur 66. However, it seems that they're no longer selling it, given that when you try to check out on the site it just takes you to a 404 page. But now that I've shown you a little bit of the prop, let's see how I did recreating it, shall we? Meh, it's alright. I think I didn't do too bad of a job. There's some little details I got off, like the placement of the meters and this little round shaped thing, but overall I think it looks almost the same as the original weapon. One thing that threw me off though was the circular parts of the prop, which I feel like I've always struggled with, so I just opted to flatten them out on this one. They don't make too much of a difference to how identical it looks, but sometimes the small little details can add up to make the prop look even better. Anyways, if I had to rate this, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It looks identical to its original prop it's modeled after, with the exception of a few small details, and also the flattened parts kind of bother me a little. And speaking of flattening parts, I don't think we're gonna get away with flattening any parts on this next prop. Like I said before, the Saboteur 66 was a part of a pack that also came with a primary shotgun for the Scout called the Mule. The Mule. Yeah, there's not much to say about this weapon except that it looks cool. One thing that I am curious about though is how it would actually function in game with its own unique stats. If you look at any other weapon that Weta Workshop has made, they're all projectile based with infinite ammo. It would have been interesting to see Scout with a projectile based weapon as a primary, but I'm sure that hit scan weapons fit the Scout better since speed is his main attribute. Regardless, it would have been cool to see this in game, as the design of this weapon is probably my favorite one in the pack, but it is also very circular in some places, so let's see how I do with recreating it. Meh, I mean this one's alright too. I think I handled the circular parts pretty well, as I tried some new techniques in order to get it down. I think it's not that bad, except there's just one problem. It is way too big. If you look at an in-game image of the weapon, you can see that it is significantly smaller, and that's where I messed up badly. Halfway through building this, I had realized it was too big, but I had already sunk hours into it and I was like, damn, can't turn back now. Overall, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 10 because it was just way too big and I honestly could have done better with this. Though I will say I do like the circular part and will definitely be applying this technique to other props I make in the future. Before I move on, and since we're on the topic of unreleased Weta Workshop weapons, I would like to mention that apparently the same artist who modeled the Pomson 6000 also worked on an Unreleased Sentry design, reimagining all 3 Sentry levels. The sources of these images come from a portfolio site from a game developer and 3D artist who did contract work for Weta Workshop. I'm unsure as to whether or not this was taken into consideration by Valve, and although it wasn't added into TF2, it was used in a concept video where you could hear it emitting the exact same Sentry sound from TF2 verbatim. This new Sentry concept is pretty interesting, and it had me wondering as to how exactly something like this would work in game. Maybe it would function like a lock-on laser, or maybe even be projectile based, but in the end, who knows what Valve would have in store for a concept like this. But yeah, even though I'm not going to be building it in this video, I thought it would be pretty cool to share, and if this video gives enough comments about it, I may even do a part 2 where I recreate it in real life. Maybe. But anyway, let's get back to building the rest of the unreleased weapons for this video. Up next, we'll be recreating another pack called the Bigger is Better pack, which includes a primary shotgun, a secondary revolver, and a melee hammer, all for the engineer. This pack was actually a community created pack made by Josh Opel and was entered into the Polycount pack contest, which was a contest that was sponsored by Valve as well as the modeling community known as Polycount. The contest asked the community to create brand new models with unique stats to replace existing items in the game. Out of all of the submissions, there would be 5 winners, which would be added in the Manconomy update. This update is full of community made packs that give us many of the weapons that we know and love today. Although the Bigger is Better pack was never added into the game, it did receive quite a lot of attention from the community. Even if you go into the comments of the Steam Workshop page for one of the weapons, people are still upset this wasn't added into the game. If we go over to the Polycount website, the creator of the Bigger is Better pack actually documented his creative process, showing us different stages of the development and getting all kinds of feedback and suggestions from the community. As I've mentioned before, one of the weapons in this pack was a primary shotgun named the Big Mean Mother Hubbard. This weapon is a one-shot blunderbuss type weapon that uses metal along with regular ammo to pack a powerful punch. Instead of shells, it shoots nuts and bolts which are stored in this little box along the top of the weapon. Looking back on the weapon during earlier development reveals that the little box was meant to be a much larger, more traditional ammo box, but was revised to look smaller and more neat. One thing about this ammo box is that you wouldn't actually use it to reload. Instead, you would reload by simply pumping the shotgun, and the longer you pump, the more damage your shot will pack. Overall, I think that this is an interesting weapon idea for the engineer, and the creator did a good job bringing it to life with his design and attention to detail. Although the creator did a good job with his design, let's see how I do recreating it. I mean, this one's pretty nice too. I'd say it looks accurate to the original model. The hardest thing about this prop was probably getting the curves right at the end of the barrel, making it look clean. You can still see some small wrinkles at the end, but not enough to make it look horrible. One thing that kinda irks me though is the fact that this specific prop might actually look better painted, given how many colors the original uses. And I actually get asked all the time why I never paint my props, and the main reason is because I like that cardboard amateur look. Another thing I liked was how I added nuts and bolts to the little ammo box on top. I thought this was a cool little addition since that's how ammo would be stored in game. Overall, I give this a 7 out of 10. Up next, we have a secondary weapon made for the engineer called the Big Tex, which interestingly enough is a revolver. The Big Tex went through some drastic changes in its early stages. At first, the creator pulled shapes from Pyro's flare gun and Spy's revolver, until eventually experimenting with adding a magazine to the bottom of the cylinder, only to remove it later on and settle for a more traditional revolver look. I feel like the magazine was mostly added to fit the reload animation that the engineer has for the pistol, but it could have been added as a stylistic choice as well. But regardless, the end result is a large revolver with a touch of Texan personality. Now that we've covered all that, let's move on to my recreation, shall we? Alright, this is how I like it. This looks practically identical to the Big Tex. Everything from its shape and size is exactly what I expected it to be, and all the details are on point too. Luckily for us, the creator published his models on Sketchfab, which allows us to view the model from every angle, and I got every detail right. Well, except for the hammer and the star, but that aside, everything is basically the same. I get this 9 out of 10. Though I can't help but wonder how a weapon like this would function in game. Would it be a weaker weapon with a fast firing rate, or a stronger weapon with a slower firing rate? Unlike the Big Mean Mother Hubbard, I was unable to find anything on how it would function in game, which just leaves it up to speculation. And yeah, video over now.